Hi, I'm Jeff. This is Tropical Plants at 53 degrees north. So today we're going to look at something called a Coleria. And I did a short quite recently, and I said at the time that I would do something a little bit more in depth. For those of you who have an attention span of more than 60 seconds, I would like to look a little bit more closely at this plant. It has way more blooms on it now, so even if you saw the short, it's well worth a look. And just before we dive into that, I thought I'd show you this. Let's see if we can zoom in on this. So this is a Dracula orchid. It's actually a Dracula chimera. And I don't know if you can see that there. It's the weirdest thing. Absolutely beautiful, exotic looking plant. And I believe that they actually produce a scent which is very similar to a particular type of fungi. I think it was a guild fungi, if I remember reading correctly. And that attracts particular flies. I think the fruit is some kind of fruit fly. And then what happens is that fly actually comes and lands in it and pollinates it. So actually a little bit boring if you think about it, because I would expect something a bit more exotic like a hummingbird to pollinate it. But no, it's pollinated by flies. But they are absolutely wonderful things. And I'm used to seeing photographs of them like that. But in actual fact, when you look at how they present themselves, it's like almost like it's hovering or floating or just kind of being spread-eagled like that. So a really weird thing, and I know they're not exactly rare, but it's something that I've never grown before. This is my very first bloom on it, so I'm really happy with that. Hopefully I can get more spikes on that for next year. So that's a Dracula chimera. So let's jump into the video. And we are in. So there's been absolutely tons of growth since you were last in my greenhouse. It's about a week since I did a video, which is a long time for a greenhouse at this time of year. The weather has been absolutely glorious. It's not today. It's dropped right down to 10 degrees Celsius again today. But the temperatures in here anyway, certainly in this warm side, we're getting up to 35, 36. So much so that on the cool side, I've put the automatic vent openers up now. And I'm actually going to buy, for this warm side, some filled with orchid wax, and that will mean that they don't open at 18 degrees Celsius. They actually only open about 25, 26 degrees, because you can imagine they have a problem in here. If I'm keeping it heated to 18 degrees, if they then open at 18 degrees, I'm going to have my heater kicking in, so that's no good. So I'm going to get some orchid wax tubes. Anyway, I digress. So what we're looking at today is Coleria. You might just be able to see it over there. There's a number of blooms on. So what we're going to do is have a really close look at this. I've actually got two of them. I've got one here that's not really coming to full growth yet. It's only quite recent that's really started taking off. And this one over here, this one's Coleria Sunshine. So this is the one I did the short about. It only had two videos. It only had two blooms on it at the time. Several more blooms on it now. Loads to come. So let's have a close look at this. I'll get them both down. We can look at them in isolation without distractions of all the other plants that we've got growing in here. And we'll have a discussion about its care conditions or its care needs and how you can grow this as well in your houses. Okay, so we've got them both down here. So we have here Coleria Brazil Gem on the left and Coleria Sunshine on the right. So as I said in my short, in a very rushed video, these are of the Gesneriad family, the Gesneriaceae family. And if you're familiar with Gesneriads, it's much like Orchidaceae. It's a family of plants. There are lots of plants and they have very similar kind of flowers, like these tubular flowers. The leaves are very different on a lot of these plants, but they are collected much the same as orchids are. People get very obsessed about Gesneriads, and I can understand why, totally understand why. Now, Streptocarpus and African violet, St. Paulias, are also in the Gesneriad family. And you know people collect those, don't they, as well? I've got lots and lots of Streptocarpus, and I've just begun to collect some African violets as well. So you can see that they are really popular amongst certain groups of the plant community. So I bought these about 15 months ago, and it was my first kind of exploits with plants that were in this family that were Streptocarpus. And I have to say, I'm really impressed, and I must get some more. As I say with all these kind of plant families, And the problem is space, of course, because as these plants get bigger, then your space gets much, much smaller. I think that's a complaint that anybody who's really obsessed with plants is going to find. So these are tropical and subtropical plants, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about them, but let's just have a quick look at them first, a bit of a closer look. So this one is the Brazil Gem. This one's only just really started taking off. I kept these in the cool side of the greenhouse for about a month, but they don't really want to go down to 12 degrees Celsius. And we'll come to that in a minute, because there are different kinds of care needs depending on whereabouts in the world that you are. But I've just noticed this one. So these are the old leaves from last year, so you can tell the difference. This one's been a little bit slower to get going, and even though it's the same age as the other one, you can see that it's going to be a while, this one, before it blooms. I've just noticed, can you see we've got a little tiny shoot coming at the bottom. So they come from rhizomes, and you'll find that they actually travel as rhizomes. I might see if I can put a little bit of footage from when I first got them and I first planted them. I'll put some of that up on screen so you can see. They look like little tiny caterpillars about that long. And that's how they travel. They're very easy to pass around and propagate like that. However, one of the care recommendations, in fact I think even from the people that I bought them from, was that they go dormant, obviously in the winter, in the dormant season. Now I have found and done a little bit of research on this, and I've actually experimented myself and found that where they live in the wild, in these tropical and subtropical regions, they don't really get seasons. So they're not necessarily a naturally seasonal plant in terms of dying down and becoming dormant. Now that doesn't mean that you can't make them dormant, and that doesn't mean that that might not be something you want to do. You might want to do that in the off season. This time around, I left them for about a month at 12 degrees. They didn't really like it. So I got them over into the warm side at 18 degrees, and then they started growing again for me. So it was probably about the end of January when I moved them over to the warm side. This is the result. So this one is Calereia Sunshine. So if you saw what this looked like last year, this is way better. I mean, it was lovely last year, but this is a way better specimen. So you've got these really hairy leaves, you've got some nice red underneath, you've got these gorgeous tubular flowers. They are quite hairy as well, really tactile, very, very delicate to look at, very detailed. Just an all-round lovely thing. Now this one I'm looking at is about 30 to 40 centimetres tall, which is about as tall as they go actually. I've got loads and loads of blooms coming, loads of buds, all these are the buds coming, and it's still in a really small pot. You can see it's only like, 10 centimetre pot, something like that. So great to have as a house plant, because the temperatures that they grow in is, roughly 18 to 23 degrees Celsius, which is about like an average room temperature, and they can do that all year round. There's absolutely no need to put them into dormancy if you can provide those conditions. As I said before, you might want to do that. You might want to let them go into dormancy, in which case when it comes round to the winter time, just let them naturally start to slow down, cut all the flowers off, and you can of course cut them right back to the base and they will respond. If you're keeping them in slightly cooler temperatures, then they're not going to grow. But if you keep them at 18 degrees, you can keep them going and they will be a long flowering plant for you. So I'm intending keeping them at 18 degrees as a minimum, and I'm just going to keep them going and try and get them as big as I can. Once this bloom spike has finished, I will cut it further back, try and get a more stubby, bushier plant, and there's no reason why it won't keep giving me these gorgeous, gorgeous blooms. So if you are going to bring them into dormancy, just make sure they don't go below 12 degrees. Hold off the watering for a little while. You might find that you lose the top growth, but when you want them to come back into bloom for you or come back into leaf for you, raise the temperature a bit and give them some water. And of course, you can play around with dormancy on a lot of plants. I mean, all you need to do is look at the plants that's on offer in various supermarkets and shops, and you'll see that very often they're brought into bloom at the wrong time of year. I'm thinking things like Dendrobium nobilis and lots of orchids, Phalaenopsis orchids and so on, that are very often brought into bloom or brought into leaf depending on what the market demands, not necessarily on what the natural habitat demands. So as far as temperatures go, we said 18 to 23, but they do like a nighttime drop. So providing you can give them something like a 5-degree drop. So that means if you are in a place in the world where the temperatures are pretty even all year round, they might struggle a little bit. This is one of those things that you just got to experiment with. I think most places in the world, most places, not all, most places in the world tend to have a nighttime drop in temperature. As far as watering goes, you water them when they're dry. I've found them not to be that fussy. As soon as they go dry, I've not found there's any wilting going on, but as soon as that media goes dry, then I give them some water. You would expect them to go dry very, very quickly, based on the fact that these are really small pots, but I've not found that's the case. I found that they do last a few days, even in the hot temperatures that we've had these last few days. Again, hot, I'm saying hot, it's hot for the UK, it might not be hot for other places. As far as media goes, well, it's the same kind of media that Streps like, and probably African violets too. So we're talking like a peat-based compost and a bit of perlite. I'm trying to move away from peat now, so I would use a fine coir as an alternative, again with a bit of perlite, and I've heard that they will flourish in this, but I will have to give that a try once these are ready for repotting. So you can keep repotting them and get a bushier plant. Humidity above 50%. One word of caution, because these leaves are very hairy, and you find this with lots of plants with hairy leaves, they don't want to be sprayed. So if you're trying to give them a bit of humidity, don't spray those leaves, because that will very probably lead to some kind of leaf rot or even burning from the sun. And I mentioned already, they will take a heavy pruning and they will respond really vigorously to that pruning. So what I'll do when my other one comes into bloom, I'll do another little video on that. It might be a short while, it's just going to be a little bit of a quick look at how nice the blooms look. But I'm sure you'll agree, this is a really, really nice plant and not something that you see in many people's houses. So if you want to try something different, then Calauria is a good one to try. Okay, if you enjoyed any aspect of this video, or if you found any of it in any way valuable to you, then please give me a thumbs up. In fact, thumbs ups, thumb ups. Pressing that thumb up button, pressing that thumb up button does actually give me more. Pressing that thumbs up button will actually help to spread my channel and enable me to continue making videos for people, hopefully that provide some sort of value to people. So for now, I'll see you on the next one. Bye.